He's not shy. He's hiding from us. My first sighting was in late spring, early summer, 63. I was 12 years old. And this head pops up out of the water. That was burned into my mind, that image. Everything they do is related to hiding from us. You gotta lose your stinking fear. You can't learn anything by being afraid. My name is Gary Hines. I live on the west side of the Cascades in Washington. And for the last 12 years, I've been doing anthropological study of the Sasquatch. And I was trying to write a book. Being a dyslexic, that was a crash and burn. And I was entitling the book Sasquatch, A Glimpse into the Family and Child Development. And this is the only thing we've been getting is glimpses for the last 150 years. And we've been disrespectful to the Native Americans. But I better give you a little bit about myself so you don't think I'm just blowing smoke. I'm an animal person. I really don't care for people all that much. I stay quite a bit alone. I'd rather be in the woods. But now I'm growing old, and hopefully someone will use this or somebody else will use this and follow my work. The thing is, keep it simple, stupid. I'm a kissist. And all the answers are simple. My first sighting was in late spring, early summer of, when was that? 63. I was 12 years old. My folks took the family out salmon fishing, only my dad and mom fishing. And the Columbia River, muddy, spring melting, snow. And we're out there, and after a few hours go by, I finally get bored and I start looking out the bow. And this head pops up out of the water. And I tell my dad, after I come up, go back down, go about 30, 40 feet, come back up, go back down. And I told my dad, we got something crossing the river. My dad says, he's looking out the back. It's probably a seal. Well, this is no seal. And that was burned into my mind, that image. And about 53 years later, I was reading Jay Alley's book, Rain Coast Sasquatch, where fishermen in the southeast of Alaska, the Panhandle, had seen Sasquatch swimming like this. Everything they do is related to hiding from us. And what it was, I was getting a profile, and what was going on was the Sasquatch would come up out of the water like about here, and I could see the lips, a flat nose, and then up and back to a sagittal crest. and then he'd go back down, go about 30, 40 feet, come up, and he's heading from the Oregon side to the Washington side. And it finally clicked. My second sighting was driving home around 3:30 in the morning, excuse me, on the Mount Baker Highway. And around the corner, it goes downhill, then flattens out. And this very large person outside of my lights, I've got high beams on, is walking across the road. But he's walking away from me. He's not going straight across, he's going at an angle. I couldn't see the arms move, but I could see some type of movement. I had him silhouetted down the road, was a little market, and in that one area there was one street light, 2 halogen lights, and then off to the left was a barn with a halogen headlight. So I had him, silhouetted. And he was a big boy. It had to be a male. I figured he was going from the mountains over to Lummi Reservation. The third one was in Eastern Oregon, down out of Hardman. And Moose and I, my Rottweiler, we were out mushrooming, going up the hill, and I stepped off the trail, went under a fir tree to check for mushrooms in the shade, and Dink comes running up to me carrying a shin and hoof bone of an elk, wanting to play. We had a little game of fighting over the food, and he dropped it, looked, and then I looked up, and there goes about a 7-footer in winter coat. This is mid-May. And he's running away from me, so I didn't get to see anything facial. But his back had dreadlocks across it. And he was a light brown with darker brown and black hair in there. But off to about 8 inches away from his spine on the left side was about an inch and a half of dirty white hair, about 20 inches long. And this stuff is moving in the wind and with him. It's not fur, it's hair. And he just took off. Dink went after him. And they went up a hill and down the other side. And there was a 5-strand, very well constructed barbed wire fence there. And so Dink doesn't run downhill good at all. And this was a steep downhill, so he wasn't going to get caught, or he wasn't going to catch the Sasquatch. And so I went back to mushroom, and he showed up about half hour later. And I started thinking about that white streak. And being around working with horses and such, when you get a saddle burn, the hair comes back in white. Well, he had an injury. And I figured, okay, placement of that injury would, if it was a bullet, it'd catch him in the heart lungs. So it had to be an arrow fired from range. The human body is the easiest thing to lock on sights. It comes right there. So Either he moved or it was a long shot. And he probably just reached up behind him and pulled it out. And it came back in white. The last one, which was locally here, was the babysitter of the family that I was observing. And I had Babe with me, a lab Rottie with a lab brain, and an Austrian black and tan, little Austrian black and tan. They use them over there for tracking game. They only get about 50 pounds, maybe. And lo and behold, here's the babysitter standing at about 50, 60 feet from me, motionless. He's in the shade from the sun going down behind the tree, so I didn't get any sheen from him. But I got a good look at his framework, and it's beautiful. Dome head, totally black, as the ace of spades. No ears that I could see, but he had a long, distinct neck. And in the framework, his shoulders were 3.5 feet across. And I finally figured out, okay, the babysitter's a male. I thought it was a female at the time. And he's probably about 6'7", about that. I could see him from mid-pelvis up. And he just stood there. I got a good 10-minute look before we decided to leave. And this one was intentional. The first three, luck of the draw. And he didn't have to do it, but I knew the kids were probably somewhere behind him. And they were probably about 6 years old at the time. So that's my 4 sightings. They use telepathy. And I think I'm researching this out through the Bible. And when, after the flood, at some point, could have been 300 years after the flood, that God gave us the animals as food too. But the dread of man will be upon the animals. There's 3 things that animals fear from us: our sight, our scent, and our voice. I've been sitting at home and I'd in the evening, I'd say, well, we haven't been up this way in a while. Let's go up there tomorrow, you know. And they'd be there. I don't know how they do it. The way I think it works is you think to that person in another language. When it goes into their head, it becomes their language. And back and forth. Genesis 2, God gave man dominion over all the land animals. Now, in order to have dominion, you have to have communication. Now, either Adam knew each and every language of all the animals and critters and crawlers and such like that, or he had telepathy. And when God took that away, he may have taken other abilities away from us that the Sasquatch still have. Back in 2012, when David Paulides and Dr. Ketchum went on Coast to Coast to present her Sasquatch genome, the first hour was of David Paulides. Second hour was Melba Ketchum. And she said that the initial DNA that all the other DNA comes off of is human you look in the Bible and God is creating animals of their kind. And Sasquatch and us are of a kind. If that initial DNA is exactly like ours, we're crossbreedable. And this is where Neanderthal came from, Denisovans, Cro-Magnon, all came from that union going, being crossbred, and then coming together, staying with human families, being raised, clothed, whatever, whatnot. This is Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4. When man began to increase in numbers on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God went to saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. If you go back to Job chapter 1 and 2, the fallen angels are the sons of God. And the Lord says here, then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be numbered 120 years. It took Noah, his family, and probably dinosaurs packing or dragging material, 120 years to build the ark. Because Noah got the instructions when he was 380, and they went into the ark when he was 600. Verse 4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men, had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. That don't flow. It should flow. What the Lord revealed to me was Moses was interrupted, and he has a speech impediment. He stutters, and he didn't appreciate it. But the Lord wanted this in there. The fourth verse is quite revealing. Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. So they went on the ark. And they didn't have to be full grown. I ran on National Geographic of a archaeological discovery. And I believe it was Hungary. And this cave didn't go back very far, and it was like a 1%, if that, from entrance to the back. But at the back, it made an abrupt turn down for over 600 feet. So these scientists, I don't know if they're anthropologists or archaeologists, they rappelled down gingerly and got to the bottom. And they found 5 whole skeletons of Neanderthal. And the article said that, they either packed them down there or they threw them down there. Well, this is not a typical cave. It's got a lot of things sticking out. And if they threw them down there, they'd be bouncing back and forth for over 600 feet, getting things busted, torn off. They'd be a mess. By the time they hit the bottom, they'd be a sack of you know what.
Yeah.
So how'd they get down there without breaking a damn bone? What I think happened was the flood came, and it got up and started coming into the cave and forced them back. And they didn't want to go down because that makes no sense, you know. And as the cave filled, they drowned. And they floated down so ever gently and slowly and were deposited at the bottom. You got to look at the evidence. You got to follow the trail. You got to sniff it out. And you have to face the reality we're being lied to. And the lie is to keep us away from knowing God, that He exists. Because once you get to that point, now you got to deal with Jesus. Sasquatch calls Him the great creator. What they saw was Jesus. What the Native Americans, they saw Jesus. If you go back and look after the crucifixion, Christ only appeared to the disciples about 4 times. So where was He at for the rest of that time? Well, we know that He went down to hell for 3 days and preached down there and saved a lot of people down there. And all the Native Americans, they have their story of this white person coming around and talking to the tribes. God plays fair. These people didn't know Jesus, that were in hell or Hades, whichever one it is. And the Native Americans, they have to find out too. And that's why they call Him the great creator. And that's just, you just got to keep it simple. God's telling a story. And with Genesis and a lot of other places, we just read over it and go on. Where I'm a dyslexic, and when I first started reading the Bible, it was my finger on one word at a time. And I make mistakes. And it makes no sense. So I have to go back and back and back and back and back. And finally, I see the mistake. And then it makes sense. But according to God, the Nephilim, Sasquatch, they're animals. But they're highly intelligent. The more I learn about them, the more I'm in awe of His brain. They may not communicate well because, like they say, you have to talk to them like a autistic child. But they can read every thought in your mind. They know your intentions sometimes before you even leave home. I've heard that one person got mind speak from 2,000 miles away. You got to bring all this stuff together. All I'm doing, I'm just a dog, and I'm just tracking. Now, good example of telepathy, when the Pharisees and Sadducees were plotting to trick Jesus, Passover, He always knew. He knew the argument before they spoke it. and he always had the answer. When he was dealing with people, Sermon on the Mount, and a person asked a question, he would ignore the question and go right to the point of what the person was really after, what the problem really was. Well, we probably had those abilities. But we're fallen. We're sinners. And this is why the Sasquatch is hiding from us, is because of our sin and what we did to them after the flood. Jesus walking on the water. The Sasquatch can elevate while they're running. They're not touching the ground. They're not leaving tracks. Tracks disappear in the snow. I heard one on Roundtable of Knowledge. A guy was out ice fishing, and he's got his warmest clothing on, which is a lot of layers, and a Arctic camouflage. So he's whited out on a white lake. And here comes a Sasquatch walking across the lake. And he's staring at it, and finally the Sasquatch stops and looks at him, and then turns around and goes another way. And so this guy starts following. The Sasquatch goes around a part of the lake where he can't be seen. And then the guy comes around, and he's still following the tracks. And he gets around there, and the tracks end. He's not going through a portal. He's just elevating, walking off, standing in some place, waiting for this guy to come around the corner and run into no tracks. And he's zooming in with his telescopic vision and getting a chuckle over this guy's dumb-looking face. What the heck? You know, they do have a sense of humor, and they do have a sense of fair play. This is Genesis 25, 19 through 27. It deals with the Isaac, Rebekah, and the birth of Esau and Jacob. Rebekah goes to the Lord because she's having a difficult time with her pregnancy. The babies jostled each other in her, and she said, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord told her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples within you will be separated. One will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When it came time for her to give birth, there were 2 twin boys in her womb. The first came out, was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. They're not weaving clothing, they're using animal hides. So the name named him Esau, which means red. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So we named him Jacob because he deceives. Esau's hair is like the hair of Sasquatch. They have hair, not fur. Esau retained the red hair all his life. Esau and those like him are raised within the tribe, a tribal family. Esau is a great hunter, possesses attributes of a wild animal. The pregnancy was a fraternal pregnancy, resulting in two nations within Rebecca. One son one human son as Jacob, and the other as Esau, bigger, hairier, vastly stronger son. Esau is the oldest brother, and he should get the inheritance. But he can't get the inheritance because Jesus can't come through him. He's got two gene pools. So you need two saviors. So it has to go through Jacob. The first thing we want to get straight is Hebrews chapter 6, verse 18 and 19. God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. All this is absolutely true. There's two things God can't do, and only two: lie and do evil. With Rebecca carrying the eggs of both nations, that was not uncommon. A lot of this is going on, and they bring them up into their family. And Esau goes on and creates his own tribe out there. You follow this out to when the Israelites are in their final days of wandering in the wilderness, because they decided they didn't want to go in there and take on the Nephilim that were in the land too. And once that generation was wiped out, except for Joshua, I believe, and Caleb. And when Caleb gets his homeland for his family, tribe, he asks for Hebron, where the Sasquatch and the crossbreeds still live. The fight wasn't over for him. Goliath was 9.5 to 11 feet tall. He's not Andre the lumbering giant. This guy is an athlete. He's quick, strong, and fast. And when David went out there with 5 shiny stones, he was going to kill all 5. It's still going on out there. There's 3 places in the world where Neanderthals live. Northwest China, and that came from some missionaries over there, because that's Muslim country, witnessing. And they were at a village, and it had a wall around it, probably 3-4 feet high. It's ancient cities, all of these back in that type of the country. And the wall was so they could stand behind it and shoot the arrows, throw their spears, and just hack with swords and spears and whatnot. So Genghis Khan didn't have too much trouble getting inside the cities. And there at these missionaries see these people in hides, looking different. And they would come up and they would lay things on the wall and back away. And then the inhabitants of the city would come up, go through that, take some things and whatever, and then they would leave things in trade and they would back off, and then the people would come over, gather it up, and take off. And they asked the villagers, who are these people? Oh, they're mountain people, but they don't seem to have the knowledge of fire. Another place is the Ural Mountains, Siberia. Third place is the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I do find it very odd that once Melba Ketchum came out with her genome, prior to that, all the Neanderthal DNA that they've extracted is so decayed and fragmented. You can't get a genome. But after Melba got her genome out, all of a sudden, we have all kinds of Neanderthal genome. Bullshit. The crossbreeding's been going on a long time and still is. If you want to get Neanderthal DNA scientists, well, just go to the Great Smoky Mountains and good luck. You probably won't make it out and disappear. Apparently, the Sasquatch and these Neanderthals don't have anything to do with one another, because the Neanderthals got sin. And this is what these so-called experts that don't know their butts from wild honey are telling you, is that the Sasquatch is shy. He's not shy. He's hiding from us. Once you understand that we have sin and they're hiding from us because of it, a lot of his habits and reactions with us make sense. By the grace of God, stumbled onto what's going on out there, of the families bringing their young down to teach them about us and to work on their skills and attributes. When the boys are 4, Mom sends them to get close to us. And you might as well tie bells on them. They're making racket. They don't know what they're doing. They're a 4-year-old. And when they get to be 5, you don't hear them so much. At 6, you don't hear them at all. And that's when they start following you. You're out in the woods, you got eyes on you. Now, they're not going to follow a hunter with a rifle. A bigger one will be doing that. They're just following you to see if you mess up and they can get a free meal. I was told by a guy when I was in the service, I believe it was in the service, he was raised in rhododendron up in the Cascades by Mount Hood. And he's a little older, and the kids are out in the forest, which is a beautiful forest. There are great big trees and just beautiful place. And they're having pine cone fights, And he's a little older, and so he knows where all the other kids are at. And he's getting pelted with pine cones. And he's, who's throwing the pine cones? They do have a sense of humor. They like playing tricks on us. But basically, I think part of the problem with them throwing stones at us, you have to understand that out there, beyond the asphalt and the concrete, It's all theirs. We're the intruder. And sometimes we just happen to stumble too close to the family, and mother wants you out of there. I had a little incident at a mountain lake around here, small mountain lake. And I went up with Babe to do some fishing. And there's no action. And I start hearing the vine maple being moved as something's coming close to me. And they're not being real quiet about it. And I figured, okay, that's probably Mom. The kids are back behind her someplace. And she's, just trying to intimidate me. And so we just stayed there. And Babe, she's down by the water underneath some ferns. She's that scared. And she did that twice. But what I'm learning is to remain relaxed, unconcerned. They're just trying to get rid of us. It's all bluff. And while that's all going on, they're reading your thoughts. They're knowing your intentions. And finally, we left. And we walked out nice and easy. The first family that I worked with, I'd moved up to this area around Thanksgiving. And come December, we had an Arctic freeze come down. Daytime temperatures 21. Nighttime temperatures 13 or less, maybe even 8 degrees. And there was icicles, if you want to call them icicles, I don't know what you call them, coming up out of the ground at least 1.5 inches. And the rocks looked like they were sinking, but it was the ground that was just being pulled up. And so we were walking down the road, and I smelled him. Burnt sulfurish, straight up human BO. And so we kept all walking. And before I got there, I had lost my fear of them up when I lived by the Canadian border. I'll tell you about that one. So we get to a point where it gotten stronger, and I figure, okay, they're over that direction. So I just turned, waved, put my hand up above my head, bowled over like this, for strength, took my ponytail out, shook it, and went like this, waved, and continued on our walk, putting him behind us in between me and home. We got to the end, instead of Babe sniffing out the campsite, because the coyote had come through after the weekend, she's staring right up the hill, not moving a muscle, just staring. Okay, you got a conversation going on. We did not hear anything coming through the brush following us. And the following February, I learned that there was a family in there with kids. At this time, I did not know. And so what was going on was Mom was up there. The babysitters got the kids secured. And Mom and Babe are just having a conversation. So I just light up a smoke and kicked back. I got a raging river behind me. I got Mom up the hill. There's no place to go to the right, and I just came from Dad. So I'm basically surrounded. You have to put yourself into an area and hold your stuff together and relax. Be calm. So you're trying to get them to think. With Dad is like a batter in the batter's box, and the pitcher throws him the old 12 to 6 curveball, where it starts in at your head, and when it crosses the plate, it's at your knees. And the only thing a lot of batters do is just stand there and hold the bat, because you're not hitting it. The Sasquatch really doesn't like us. People have run onto him, and even though the Sasquatch is swaying at them back and forth, he's staring at them like he'd just like to, leave us a greasy mess on the ground. But they walk away. A time is coming shortly when God will say, okay, it's your turn. And they're going to come after us. You're already seeing it with bear attacks, cougar attacks on the rise. That's the fourth seal. What we're seeing out here is the third seal and the fourth seal and the fifth seal. All those seals can break simultaneously, not hundreds and thousands of years later. The seventh seal opens the 7 trumpets. The 7th trumpet opens the 7 plagues. It goes from everybody being affected to those who do harm to the earth, and then those who have accepted the mark of the beast. When it comes to the rapture, the Lord says he sends out 4 angels in 4 directions through the universe to gather his people. So there might be the same things going on out there that's been going on here. On different planets. We don't know how many, but we know we got 4 angels going out bringing in the harvest. We should slow down and look at those riddles. I do not read the Bible well. I have not read it all. And I'm not going to read it all. But I know who's got the answers. And what I do is, okay, I don't know. You guys know. Will the Holy Spirit be my spiritual guru, be my teacher? And he has taken me on a fantastic journey. There may be other people out there like me that have contacted the so-called experts, telling him, I got this going on here, which is great information. But they call them kooks. I want to let those people know that they can do this. You can come out. We're not experts, but the ones that are saying they're experts are full of BS and lies. They want to control the narrative. The Sasquatch is an insomniac, and it fits. For a family of 5, or a group of 5, he's got to put a lot of meat on that table. So he's doing a lot of hunting. And the babysitter may be entertaining the kids, watching out for them, taking care of them, while Dad and Mom are out hunting. And we don't know how long the kids are on the breast. Could be 6 years, could be more. I figure around 6. Because that's when they start following us. We had a situation with the first family. I was out up the Sasquatch Trail. It had been hot, so I brought the dogs up there to let them cool off and everything. And And on the way out, it's the windiest day of the summer at that that it turned out to be. And the fir trees, you got a lot of really big trees, and then you got other trees that are growing up fast to reach the sun, and they're only about, a foot, 14 inches thick, while the other trees are 30 plus inches thick. Well, these trees are blowing about a 12-foot arc. And the kids are up there wood knocking at me, and it's verbal. They're having a blast. They're teasing me, And Mom, she's up the hill. I figured the babysitter was down below in case something happened, they could catch the kid. And I think they were 4 or 5 when they were doing this. And Mom sends out her wood knock, and the 2 kids would knock at me again. Mom wood knocks again, no more wood knocks. They're just messing with me. Yeah. Nah. I did have a thing happen to me out there. I took the dogs out for a walk, sat down, had a smoke or two, and then I headed out, and that's when we heard the wood knocks and the trees swaying back and forth. And I went back to my friend's house and got my smokes out to roll one up. I didn't have them. So I left the dogs, went back out looking for them, and the trails were 5 feet across, well groomed, naturally. And then the Sasquatch trail was across the road, and it's pretty much open, and couldn't find it. Went back, had to go to town, get another pack, a roll. And 2-3 hours later, my friend and I, her 3 dogs, my 2 dogs, we go back up there, and I crossed the road, and there's a narrow trail with knee-high grass, dead. And I found my pack stashed on the left-hand side where anybody driving that road couldn't see it. When I went back out, the boy had it and then placed it there. And that's when I knew I got friends. The one thing I got from Steve Isdall's channel is the swaying. Every time they sway, it's peaceful on their side, but not so much ours. And they don't have to sway. He had one story of a school outing for little kids, and they had 3 women, trying to oversee 20 kids. Well, they were just starting back, and this one little boy saw a turtle. So he stepped off, and he's, observing this turtle. Well, the rest of the class and everybody left him. They didn't know because they're not counting heads like a bunch of idiots. And so he's getting a little anxious, where is everybody? And out steps this giant, hairy man. He didn't know how big he was. He was just giant to him because the kid ain't very big. And he swayed to this kid back and forth, reached down, picked him up, the kid's screaming, filling his stuff up, and took him and placed him where he could hear or know where he was at to get back to the bus. Some people think when they're doing this swaying, it's because they're nervous or anxious. No, it's something peaceful. And I have used this in my travels, and it works. It settles things down right quick. Treat them with respect. I went into an area to get firewood with another guy, and I told him, they're in here, you know. Moose and I get out. We walk up the hill before we start. We're starting to unload, but the other guy's unloading the truck. And I just get up there in a quiet voice. I'm sorry for disturbing you. I need firewood so I can, stay warm this winter. And that was it. So we get unloaded and we're zipping through stuff, and in between the chainsaws running, we're hearing voices up the hill from us. I mean, it went up like that. And I lose sight of Moose. And I call for Moose, and he pops his head. He's up the hill from us, behind a log, chewing on a stick. He's fine. You got to show respect. You got to apologize. You're dealing with a humanoid that's a lot smarter than us. They got us outclassed 1,000%. I know as I'm walking anywhere or my usual places that he can kill me, and by the time I figure it out, I'm going to be up in the air. My spirit's going to be up in the air looking down on some big hairy dude packing me off under his arm. In fact, I was out with my third rider, Moose. We're walking down the trail. Usual trail. And I think the boy was about 6 at the time. All of a sudden, it feels like the energy is just being sucked out of me. I'm going down. And as soon as I thought, well, I'm not going to be getting up from this, it quit. He was practicing his infrasound or whatever it was. Saw that I was injured, heard it, and cut it off. The owlman says that they're not supposed to harm us, but things get bad for food, we get on the plate. If people want to go out and have an experience, the best thing they can do is to go out on a Forest Service road with a dog that you can control, whether you have to use a shocker or not, and walk the road. Because they are walking the road. These people are insomniacs. They're out all night, but they're watching the roads all day. I got a family down here. I go up about a mile or so, going back and forth. I got another family that Moose is alerting me to. Go up another mile and a half. I got another family. And get as far as I can go up. There's another family. They're all over, up and down the Cascades, from northern BC to the Mexican border, on the west side of the Rockies, the west side of the Rockies and the Cascade Mountains. You probably have a population of 100,000 or more. There's that much food out here. They have civilization. They're well organized. And they're watching. The natives call them the right thing, watchers. Because that's what they're doing. They're keeping an eye on us hairless sinners. Because they have to. They can't trust us all that much. Everything's going according to the book. If God said it, it's going to happen, period. Keep it simple. Be patient You can't do a Jane Goodall with these people. I'm just a guy trip, stumbling, and falling doing anthropological work. We haven't hit on a lot of what my reactions with them has been and how much and what all's been going on. But they trust me. And apparently, I'm seeing evidence that I have a good reputation with them. And that's what you got to get. But first of all, you got to lose your stinking fear. You can't learn anything by being afraid. And take it to the Holy Spirit. Take it to God. What's going on here? And just bug them about it. And you'll get an answer. And, it's that simple. Why not I figure that out? Stay away from the experts. I know one hell of a whole lot more than they do, and I'm not an expert. There are no experts because we're just getting glimpses. What they want to do is control the narrative, teach you how to chase your tail, and pay them lots of money. But when you're out there, if you decide to do this with a dog, be packing. Because there are people out there ripping people off for human sacrifice. And I'm not kidding. Besides, sometimes the bear and the cat get past the Sasquatch. When they come into an area, that's the first thing that leaves. They boogie quick.